This happened a few years ago, and even now I have trouble explaining why it bothered me as much as it did. Nothing violent happened, nothing dramatic, but from the very first day, it felt like that apartment knew more about me than it should have. I had just moved to a new city for work. New job, new routine, new everything. I didn't know anyone there, so I picked an apartment mostly out of convenience. It was an older building, nothing fancy, but the rent was reasonable and it was close to my office. That was all I cared about at the time. The leasing process was strangely easy. Too easy, actually. I filled out an online form, uploaded my ID, and within a few hours I got an email saying I was approved. No follow-up questions, no phone call, just a welcome email with my move-in date and apartment number. When I showed up on move-in day, the office was empty. Lights on, door unlocked, but no one at the desk. There was an envelope sitting on the counter with my name written on it in thick black marker. Not printed, handwritten. I remember thinking that was a little odd, but not enough to dwell on. Inside the envelope was my key, a parking pass, and a short note. "Welcome home." No signature. I unlocked my apartment and stepped inside. It smelled faintly like cleaning supplies and old wood. The place was empty, just like the listing photos. No furniture, no boxes, nothing left behind. Still, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt less like entering a new place and more like returning somewhere I'd already been. That first night, I didn't sleep much. Every sound felt louder than it should have. Pipes knocking, footsteps from the apartment above me. Normal stuff, I kept telling myself. Around midnight, I heard a knock on my door. Not loud, just two soft knocks. I checked the peephole. No one was there. I opened the door anyway and looked down the hallway. It was empty and quiet. The hallway lights hummed softly, stretching down both directions. I closed the door and locked it, telling myself it was probably a neighbor who knocked on the wrong door. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from the apartment complex. The subject line read, "Noise complaint, Unit 3B." That was my unit. The email said they had received a complaint about excessive noise coming from my apartment and asked me to be mindful of others. I stared at my phone, genuinely confused. I hadn't turned on the TV. I hadn't played music. I hadn't even unpacked. I replied explaining that I'd just moved in and hadn't made any noise. I never got a response. Over the next few days, small things kept happening. Maintenance requests I never submitted were marked as completed in the online portal. The air conditioning would turn on by itself. The bathroom light was on one morning when I knew I'd turned it off the night before. I started wondering if someone else had a key. One evening after work, I came home to find a note slipped under my door. It said, "Please don't rearrange the furniture." I laughed out loud when I read it. There was no furniture. I emailed the office again, attaching a photo of the empty living room. This time, they replied within minutes. "That note wasn't meant for you. Please disregard." No apology, no explanation. That night, I heard voices in the hallway. Muffled conversation. A man and a woman, maybe. I couldn't make out the words, but I could tell they were standing right outside my door. I waited for a knock. It never came. When I checked the peephole, the hallway was empty again. The next morning, I ran into a neighbor for the first time. An older woman from across the hall. She smiled politely and said, "Oh, so you're the new one." I nodded and introduced myself. Her smile faded just a little. "That's funny," she said. "You don't look like him." I asked who she meant. She shook her head and said, "Never mind. Must be mistaken." Before I could ask anything else, she went back into her apartment and closed the door. That same day, I received another email from the complex. Subject line, "Reminder." The email addressed me by name. It said, "You've been reminded before about this. Please don't make us escalate." It didn't say what this was. I forwarded the email back, asking for clarification. No response. That night was the worst. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of someone unlocking my door. Not trying to, actually unlocking it. The handle turned slowly, deliberately. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, staring at the door. The lock clicked, but the door didn't open. After a few seconds, I heard the lock turn back the other way. Then footsteps, walking away down the hall. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I went straight to the leasing office. This time, there were people inside. Real people. A woman behind a desk and a man sitting at a computer. I explained everything. The notes, the emails, the door. The woman frowned and typed something into her computer. Then she stopped. She looked up at me and said, "You're not on our current tenant list." I told her that wasn't possible. I showed her my lease agreement on my phone. She studied it carefully. "That lease ended months ago," she said. "The previous tenant moved out, or was supposed to." I asked who the previous tenant was. She hesitated, then said his name. It was my name. Same first name, same last name. I laughed because it felt unreal. She didn't laugh. She asked me how long I'd been staying in the apartment. I told her. She said, very calmly, "You shouldn't be there." They let me break the lease without penalty. No questions, no paperwork. They just told me to pack my things and leave. As I was carrying my last box out, I noticed something on my door that I hadn't seen before. Scratched lightly into the wood, just above the handle, was my name. Not printed, not written, carved. I moved out that day. I never went back. And I still don't know who lived there before me, or why the apartment seemed to think I was him.